First story. OP ran away from home after his father's constant abuse and his mom siding with her husband. And now, after 2 years, he has made an update on how his life is going. This is a throwaway account, obviously, because I need to get all of my thoughts out somewhere. And I think I'd benefit from hearing from a variety of people. In short, since there is too much detail as to what happened, my father has abused me since I was a young child and has hardly interacted with me until this day, making me feel no affection towards him or desire to stay around him. He has emotionally abused me from elementary school until this day. He has verbally abused me from elementary school to high school. And there was a short period of physical abuse when I was in middle school. From elementary school to the middle of middle school, he made threats towards my life on a regular basis, which I'm still worried about because he has stated recently that he sees no problem with their parents hitting their kids if they make them mad. It is especially concerning considering that the only time he acknowledged how he treated me as a child was followed by him saying that I will find that it was for the best despite how badly I was treated. Which means that he has had little self-reflection after treating me badly for years. Due to this, I'm very uncomfortable around him, and I'm afraid of making him angry. I'm not sure if his behavior becoming less horrible over time was because he realized that some of it was bad, or if it's because I rarely interact with him. Due to him making a threat towards me if I join a club that he thought was too nerdy, a Quidditch club. A paraphrase of what he said is, "If you join that club, I'm going to beat the SHT out of you." And saying that it's okay for parents to hit their kids if they make them mad during a car ride last August, I'm not sure. My current situation is that I'm a college student living on campus over an hour away from home. I'm at the end of my freshman year, and I'm planning on eventually getting a master's degree so that I can teach at a college. My schooling will take around 5 to 6 years. I've realized how much happier I am away from home after winter break. During winter break, I had been told by my father that I would fail the class that I'm currently retaking, and that he'd force me to change majors because of his dissatisfaction with me pursuing a design degree and wanting me to get an English degree. He also said that I shouldn't have gotten C's last semester. I got 3 A's and 3 C's, and that if I continue to get C's, he'll force me to drop out of school because people who deserve to go to college shouldn't be getting those grades. For more context, besides giving me a place to live, I have taken out a loan to pay for college, which had to be co-signed by my mother due to me being too young to do it myself at the time. And I'm also paying for my school supplies, including textbooks. My father has no involvement with my schooling in any capacity. Constantly being told this caused me to get mentally worse. Undoing some of the progress from counseling I have been taking at college without my parents' knowledge in hopes of raising my self-esteem and coping with the abuse I have been going through. He treats me nowhere near as horribly as he used to treat me, but he still makes me feel miserable, and I want to cut off contact with him. I have chosen to leave within a year or two after I had to go to the bathroom during class to cry after coming back from break, because the idea of him only being able to leave my life if he died, or if my parents got divorced without me leaving myself made me feel so horrible. I don't want to wait 5 years to leave home. I'm so tired of feeling like SHT every time I come home and having to pretend that nothing ever happened because no one at home acknowledges anything bad that happened to me, which is driving me insane. I want to form a plan with my counselor and get help from my college's relationship violence services, which help people in all different kinds of abusive relationships. I'll have to wait until after summer because I'll be taking classes for my science credits at a nearby college because it will be cheaper and I'll have a place to live. I can tolerate 1 summer, and I'll give myself time to get all of the paperwork and money in order. I'm unfortunately unemployed because my workplace is too far from campus, but I have $5,530 in my bank account, and I'll obviously get financial aid because of my dramatically changing financial situation. I'm also planning on seeking jobs on campus that waive tuition because I know of a few. This sounds like an easy decision to make, but my biggest issue is that I will have to cut off contact with my mother because of them being together. I love and respect her dearly, but I don't feel as though I have a choice. I don't think she will understand how I'm feeling or agree that I was abused, because she spent so much of my childhood rationalizing his behavior, and has seen some of the abuse happen, a little of the verbal abuse, a lot of the emotional abuse, and the aftermath of the physical abuse, but has done little about it. She once got me out of the house for a while because she didn't think I'd be safe at home due to my dad being in a bad mood, but that was the extent of her help. She has talked to me about my dad a handful of times recently, saying about how his dissatisfaction with life causes him to take it out on people, and how she is stressed out over how he behaves. My mother is aware that he's not a good person. Even my dad said that he wasn't a good person himself, but she still seems to love him. I actually feel as though her love for my dad has caused her to forgive him. My father is nowhere near as bad as my mother, besides threats to leave her when I'm not around and occasional jabs at her appearance. It's not good, but I don't think he'd pose any physical threat to my mother if I left. I'm planning on writing a very long letter to her about what happened to me and why I'm leaving, because I think everything is so complex and hard to fully talk about in a linear, understandable way, and also telling her that I'm not leaving because of her in a way that makes sense and seems like a thoughtful decision I have made. I want to say in this letter that I love her, but I will not keep this person in my life that she wants to keep around. It is her right to be with whoever she wants, but as an adult, it is also mine to cut off whoever I feel is bad for me. I also don't want to hear her try to rationalize his behavior. I have given my father chances to change and form a positive relationship with me for years, but I have given up after seeing that he keeps on repeating behaviors and seems complacent with how he is. Is my decision a good one? Is it wrong of me to have to cut off my mother? TLDR. My father has abused me all my life, and I want to leave in 1 to 2 years. I feel horrible about leaving because I will have to cut off contact from my mother as well, who is married to him and might disagree with me being treated badly. I'm planning on leaving during the school year, most likely during a break, and I want to write a very long letter to fully lay out my thoughts to her. What do you think about this? Update. 2 years later. I felt it was appropriate to post an update because the original post was the reason for this account being created. Not to mention that I promised one. It has been 2 years since that post, and many things have changed. Most significantly, I have finally cut off my family and have been living on my own since late August in an off-campus apartment. Since moving to my college town, many people are no longer a part of my life, and those that remain are my girlfriend, who I have been together with since July, and some nice people I met at work. I have gotten a job close to my home, where I work long hours, but the paycheck is great for my expenses. I'm awaiting a call as to whether or not I'll be hired for a job that is slightly farther away, but pays more and offers more benefits. Wish me luck with that. I wish I could report that everything is fine now, but that wouldn't be honest. On the finance aspect, everything has been working out, and I might even own a car in the near future. I have also been speaking with the financial aid office to figure out what I'll be doing for the next school year. I spoke with them earlier than necessary, so I will need to wait until the FAFSA for the 2022-2023 school year and several scholarships I wanted to apply for open up. However, I have gotten worse mentally since cutting off contact with my family. I wish I could have considered my therapist's thoughts more during our last session about whether I might relapse, but I did not. I have developed severe health anxiety I have never experienced before, along with emotional control issues and general paranoid thoughts. I think the first thing may be due to COVID, but it has certainly gotten significantly worse if I did have it before cutting my parents off. My now busy and drastically changed lifestyle may have also had an impact on my current mental state. I'm very thankful for my girlfriend, who has helped me tremendously in this difficult time. If you've somehow stumbled across this post, I love you and hope that your own family situation turns out okay. Speculation aside, it will be a long journey until I'm mentally healthy, and I knew that going in. I wanted to rush trauma recovery very badly, but I've realized that's not possible. Adulthood is all about trying to figure it out, I guess. The process of doing adult things is easier than I expected, but also very hard. It's not that keeping track of your expenses or making sure that your prescriptions are filled is hard, but it's that you have to keep doing it, even if you're so exhausted that all you want to do is sleep all day. I've found that mental exhaustion and napping are my new hobbies. I guess the summary would be that I'm somehow surviving, and that's all that I can continue to do. I hope this conclusion doesn't come across as a sad one, because it's really not that bad. The outcome was normal given my circumstances, I think. It's definitely a good trade-off from what my life was like with my parents. Edit. Oh wow, I didn't expect so many responses to this post. Thank you all so much for commenting, upvoting, and giving awards. The emotional support is very much appreciated. TLDR. I wanted to cut my abusive father and enabler mother off 2 years ago, and I finally did it. My entire family got cut off because I never really talked to them, and I didn't want anybody to deal with the family drama of myself being kept around. I live off campus and make enough at a nearby job to support myself, but I struggle with worsening mental health issues. Being an adult is hard, but I'm somehow surviving. Additional comments. My parents never taught me any skills for adulthood, despite my asking for help or advice. I was told instead that I wasn't smart enough to live on my own, which was a source of anxiety for me in the beginning. That first month of being on my own, where I had to get my own cell phone, buy insurance, and sign for my first apartment, was incredibly stressful. The months that followed were much easier to my relief. I wrote a draft of the letter, but it never came to fruition. I decided that there wasn't a point in explaining what they've inflicted and experienced firsthand, so it would be me justifying how I feel, and I didn't want that to be how it ended. The process of cutting them off was harder than I had hoped. The bill for the mattress I bought for my apartment was mistakenly sent to my old address. I got a text from my mother about the mattress, and I blocked all of my family members' numbers on my phone. Both of my parents attempted to contact me for the first 2 months through my email accounts and various social media sites that my real name was connected to. I still get notifications that they're viewing my LinkedIn account to this day. During a meeting about scholarship information, the staff member I was speaking to informed me that my mother has been calling various locations around campus about me. My father never reached out since our last conversation on Facebook, where he wanted to ask about the tax returns he never ended up sending, and told me that my life would hit me hard because I can't survive on my own. I considered telling them why I would be leaving through a letter, but I decided against it. I didn't want my last conversation with my parents to justify how I felt. I also worried about putting my mother in a situation where she would need to decide between my father and me. As for saying where I was specifically going, absolutely not. I worried about either of them showing up at my apartment. I was very afraid for that first month that they'd show up at my apartment or even at work. As for my mother, hardened would be a harsh descriptor, but it's true. I now struggle with describing what I previously felt was love, because I think it may have been influenced by her being the only adult in my life who was consistently around and wasn't my father. My relationship with my mother is complicated, to say the least. I had many good moments with her, but I don't like how she hardly stood up for me and never acknowledged my father's behavior as abusive. Yes, she is most likely in denial, but acting as if the abuse never happened can get to somebody. My ultimate choice to leave silently was based on her. I could take my father's aggression as it used to be every day, but hearing my mother explain to me again how much of a nice guy my father is, and that I just don't know, it would have been devastating to hear. Second story. OP's delusional ex-friend, who used him as a backup plan in high school, contacted him after 10 years and wanted to try again, even after she has a husband and children of her own. So this will be a weird one. I made a throwaway for it, as I think this is a pretty unique situation that the person in question could very easily figure out is about them, and I don't want them knowing my main. If they even use Reddit, I am 35 and happily married with 2 children. My wife, 32, and I have been together for 8 years and married for 4 years. We were out shopping in our hometown when we ran into my ex-friend, her parents, and her children. She moved out of state over 10 years ago, and I haven't seen her since, nor have we had any contact other than Facebook happy birthday wishes. She is married with 2 kids of her own. Anyway, onto the situation. My Phil and her father are friendly with each other. Both retired from the military and occasionally have breakfast together with their other retired friends. When we ran into each other's ex-friends, my dad congratulated my wife and me. We figured my Phil told him we're expecting our 3rd child. I saw my ex-friend look at my wife's belly and then act distant for the rest of the exchange, whereas she was friendly starting off. We trade pleasantries and say goodbye. My wife and I continue our shopping. By the time we're done, I check my phone and see I have a Facebook message from an ex-friend. XF. It was good to see you again. You too? The family looks good. XF. Yours too. Would you want to grab coffee and catch up? I'm in town for a couple more days. We're actually pretty busy. Otherwise, I would be down. I'm sorry. XF. I understand. Adulting. Can I ask you a question? Me, sure, what's up? XF. Was I just not your type? Me, what do you mean? XF. I'm asking, what did I do wrong? Me. I didn't respond, as this was out of nowhere. I pursued you for years. We were inseparable for years, and you never gave us a real chance. I loved you. Our families loved us. Our friends loved us together. You just never committed all the way to us. You wouldn't even have sex with me, and I need to know why. Was I not good enough? Could you not see yourself married to me and having a family together? I didn't respond, and I showed the messages to my wife. She knows of this girl and my reasoning for her and me growing apart mostly because we see her family everywhere, and she asked. My wife told me to be honest, but I'm not sure if that's right. It feels mean. I'm going to give my POV on our friendship, and I'm hoping I can get some advice on where to go from here. Basically, she and I met through friends in high school. I was very interested, but she was dating someone at the time. She ended up asking me out a month or so later, and we went on dates and kissed a few times, though we never had the conversation about being official, hence me calling her friend and not girlfriend. One night, while riding in the car, Her who I thought was her ex-boyfriend called her and asked when she'd be over. She didn't have it on speaker, but I could still hear the conversation. She told him, "I can't talk right now," and he asked who she was with. She didn't tell him. He later figured it out and messaged me on Facebook, asking if I knew they were still together. I apologized and said I didn't and would cut things off. I called her, and she started crying, saying she didn't have the courage to tell me they were still together. But she liked me so much and was going to break up with him. I cut her off anyway. Fast forward a few more months, and she reaches out, and we go through the same motions. Her wanting to be with me, but always having another guy message her that I would catch out of the corner of my eye. This lasted embarrassingly many years. Throughout college and our early 20s, it was always the same. She'd reach out, we'd reconnect, and things began getting serious again. I'd check her social media and see that she just broke up with someone. We even went on vacation to the mountains together for a weekend, and we did the same thing. She had literally just been there a month ago with her ex. The trip with me was her idea. The worst part is that both our families really did love us together. My parents were never rude to my girlfriends, but would ask me how my ex-friend was doing these days. Or snide remarks about how her parents miss me. Hell, even my now Phil mentioned at one point that my ex's dad brought up how he really thought I'd be his son one day. I confided in my friends years ago that I'm always just a rebound or backup plan. And that's why I could never commit to or get more physical with her. They told me to just sleep with her when she comes calling and don't pursue anything more. The problem was that I wanted more but felt used. Anyways, every time we would plan things out where sex was more than likely on the table, I'd see a guy message her or I'd see a post on social media, and it just killed my enthusiasm. When I say that, I mean literally. It crushed my confidence every single time. One of my best friends told me I didn't have to pay attention to all that and could have just had fun with her. It didn't mean I had to chase a relationship with her, knowing I was always a rebound. That felt SHTTY to me. I had other girlfriends here and there, but I wanted this girl. We just clicked, you know? But it's like some sort of goddamn mystical being was showing me a sign every single time things were going to progress in our relationship. I just didn't want her to be getting over someone else or having someone on the back burner when we'd reconnect. Maybe that's my own insecurity, but I know how I felt, and it didn't feel good. So I slowly distanced myself. After a short amount of time passed, I met my wife. She met her husband, and our lives moved on with little to no contact until the other day. I haven't responded to the message, and it's been 2 days. I was thinking of just lying and saying it's not her fault or just not responding. But my wife is insisting. I tell her the whole thing. I know this is a word wall, but I'm honestly conflicted. I told my wife I was going to ask others for their opinion, and I'm considering the internet as my own. TLDR, her ex-friend Facebook messaged me, asking why she wasn't good enough for me after running into each other over 10 years later. We're both married with children of our own. How do I respond to her messages? Comments. The Taco Life. OP. She is doing exactly the same thing she always did with you. I would bet all the cash in my wallet if you were able to look into her life. Her marriage is crumbling or her husband isn't paying enough attention to her. You were the great white whale that got away. And she is trying to test the water to see if you're down to do the same old song and dance. Now, it is even more of a challenge since you have a happy family and marriage. Don't engage with her. This sounds exactly like the same cycle you described in your young adulthood. Triage. My worry is that despite it being pretty transparent why things never went anywhere, she is still framing it as if it's some mystery, or she wasn't good enough, or whatever a decade later. This isn't about closure. This is just her being insecure. And realistically, that was probably always the case. Leading multiple guys at all times, that's what people who live for validation and a sense of control do. She was never able to earnestly pursue you. She had to have other things going on. And the fact that she can't admit that is a big old red flag in my eyes. I don't think it is worth getting dragged into her games again. You know how, after every breakup, she'd limp over to you for a sprinkle of good vibes and a distraction? This is still that, just in a different form. This is still coming back to you for validation. And if you are honest to her, what even comes of that? She just acts so sad that she messed it up, and suddenly you start seeing her coincidentally everywhere as she slowly tries to win you back or whatever. This was already a pretty gross play as is. So in my eyes, you ought to just deflect. It never really worked out. Is what it is. We both met people, and that was obviously for the best. Don't take it personally. I hope with that you have some closure, as I won't be talking about it further. I've told friends exactly that, we just weren't compatible. Which they find hard to believe as we shared so many interests, hobbies, pet peeves, etc. I will add that I was always the one to pull away whenever I saw the aforementioned signs. Nor did she try to establish a relationship with me when I was seeing other people. Other than the first interaction with her high school boyfriend, she's always been single when reconnecting. Maybe freshly single, but single nonetheless. So I can't call her disrespectful. Maybe she had other parties interested in her as well. But she didn't know my situation until we reconnected again. Who knows? All I know is that at least 3 times we started seeing each other again, and I'd see a man's name come up in text, and she'd get a huge smile on her face. That was more than enough for me to start distancing again. Update. 5 days later. Thank you everyone for your responses. I decided to listen to the majority and responded to ex-friend A. The response was well received, and we chatted for the rest of the week and met up on the weekend before Easter. The short of it is that we're both leaving our partners. A and I are going to try this relationship again, now that we've completely opened up to each other about our true feelings. Thank you all for the encouragement to do this. I couldn't have done it without you. April Fools. I would never. The real update is pretty anticlimactic, unfortunately. I ended up just never responding to A. It had already been 5 days by the time I read through every response and decided to just let it go. My wife was fine with that, but told me to block her if she messaged again. We did a couple Easter egg hunts with different family members yesterday, including at my Phil. They have a decent-sized property and host quite a few people, so I wasn't surprised to see non-family members. I was, however, surprised when A's parents were there with her children. After all the adults scattered and hid the eggs and the kids started their search, A's dad came over to chat with me, nothing out of the ordinary, and we shot the SHT for a few minutes. Towards the end, I asked if the kids were staying with them for Easter, and he basically told me A and her husband were having some troubles, and they needed some time alone to sort things out. He didn't go into specifics, so I don't know exactly what troubles are, but congratulations to those of you who called that one. For now, this should conclude the story. If she does happen to reach out again, and I feel it's worth letting you all know what it says, then I will. Otherwise, thanks again. TLDR joke intro. I saw an ex-friend's parents and her children at Phil's Easter egg hunt. She and her husband are having troubles. Comments. LaFoxrant Official. I appreciate the update. You were right not to bother responding to her. Someone who was incapable of introspection. So much so that she refused to see how problematic and toxic her treatment of you was. She hasn't changed, grown, or matured at all. I hope you and your wife have a lovely week, buddy. Hunt Environmental 863. He knows her better than she knows herself. Woman needs some therapy. Afraid since 15363. When I read your first post, I immediately thought, her marriage is on the rocks, and/or she's seeking validation from OP once again. It's probably both. Also, in the comments of your first post, you say that she was never disrespectful and never pursued you when you were with someone else. Maybe not in the past, but she is super disrespectful now to your marriage and to her own to even approach you with these questions. You were a backup plan for her, and she thought you'd always be around if she needed someone. She's not concerned. She wasn't good enough. She's never been concerned about that. She felt she could always count on you to be interested if she was bored, single, or in need of validation. That's not an insult to you. It just says a ton about her character. I think you dodged a huge bullet, and your instincts back in high school and beyond were spot on. Even if she meant no harm back in the day, reaching out to you now and asking you those inappropriate questions after seeing you with your pregnant wife is so gross and disrespectful. I think not responding was the right call. I know you don't want to be mean to her, but I think anything you said to her would have either been the ego stroke she was looking for, or would have made her think the door was open to continue messaging you and maybe more. Some people don't need much encouragement, or they will take being shut down as encouragement. Your wife sounds great, BTW. She's a keeper. Congrats to the family. I've known people like this, both men and women, who always want someone on the back burner because they're scared of being alone, or they always think they're missing something better. They're not. And it's no slight to the people they do this to. It's an issue they need to work out in therapy or something. It's exhausting and immature, and it saddens me that she's got a whole family and is still at it. She sounds deeply insecure or deeply irrational. My wife is a wonderful woman. When we talked about it last night at home after the egg hunt, she had a few different opinions on A's reasoning. Her first thought was maybe they're having fertility problems, her indifference to us, expecting our third, and the fact she talked about having a family with me. Her second thought was, basically, the consensus. She wanted attention. Her third thought, which I also thought about, was that maybe she was causing the problems in her marriage, and she wanted insight from people in her past on why her relationships fail. perhaps hoping to do better in the present or future relationships. This is all speculation. I showed her this update post when I got home from work earlier, and she added that she was also curious to know what A's response would have been had I responded. I told her I had no interest in a response. I have no interest in any of this. I'm glad for the people who sided with me on not answering, and I think it will eventually turn out to be the best option. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.